Hey 4-H'ers, we hope you're doing okay today. This is Glenn with Sevier County 4-H. We wanted to talk to you about one of our first activities we're doing, which is giving a speech. I know that gets everybody excited. What do you say? Why do you do the speech activity? We do it so we can get over that natural fear that we have of speaking in front of a group. Whatever you do in life, we're going to speak. We communicate with people. We do the speech activity to get over that natural fear. If you ask your parents, they would probably tell you one of their number one fears is sharing something in front of a group. So that's why we do it, so we can get over that fear. Let me encourage you just to work on that. If you work on that through 4-H, I promise you this is a skill that will help you whatever you do. It might help you one day. I know it'll help you make better grades in school. It will give you more confidence in yourself. It will help you, if you go to college, to make an A in that college class in public speaking. That pretty much is a requirement these days. One day it may help you get a better job. You may be in a job interview, and that speaking skills that you learn through 4-H may just help you get a step up in getting a better job. So let me encourage you in that. We're not here to force you to do this, to make you feel bad about yourself, but when you get through with that process, you'll feel much better about yourself. Simple 4-H speech is all we're asking. Speaking with no fear. You have your newsletter, and your newsletter has a lot of this information that I'm going to share with you today. One thing it says, basically we're just asking each 4-H member to give a short speech. 4th through 6th graders, 2 to 3 minutes. 7th and 8th graders, we're looking for about 3 minutes. And then our high school seniors, we're looking, your speech, especially if you go into competition, needs to be no longer than 7 minutes. All of you have got something that you could talk about. Let's talk about that just a little bit. Look at my posters here in this little demonstration that we've got. Let's talk about the types of a speech that we could do. We could do an action speech, we could do entertainment, we could do informing. And an action speech here, we're talking about encouraging somebody to take action. Perhaps you have something that you feel really strong about. Let's just look at maybe some local issues. Keep Sevier Beautiful talks to us about having a clean environment in relation to Sevier County. Maybe the road in front of your house, the people just come out and throw trash regularly there. You could get some facts about trash. You could talk to folks at Keep Sevier Beautiful. You could get some ideas encouraging people to take action, to not litter so much. Encouraging people to take action, to promote a cleanup in your neighborhood. So that would be an example of an action type speech. An information type speech. You could just share some factual information about a topic that's important to you. We'll look at some of those topics in a minute, but perhaps you have some heroes that you could talk about. Perhaps you have somebody famous in your family history that you could talk about. Share information about that particular topic. And that would be an informative type speech. Action type speech, informative type speech. Then we've got this entertainment approach here. Now, we're not encouraging you to get up and tell jokes. We're not encouraging you to get up and juggle during your speech. Not that type of entertainment. But if you wanted to make your speech a little more on the funny side, you could tell some stories, you could relate some things that might entertain the audience, where the audience would just be entertained. Pretty simple, isn't it? Some jokes, some stories, some things like that. So decide on the type of speech that you would like to get. Let's look at some types of topics that you might select. You might talk about a 4-H project. Maybe you have an animal project that you're involved in, or maybe you're in the food and nutrition project. And you could share some information in relation to that might really help us related to understanding what it takes to take care of an animal, understanding some things about staying healthy. So those ideas could relate to your 4-H project. There are lots of current events that are going on right now. I would not encourage you to get very political in your speech, even though this is a political season with our presidential campaigns. There are certain causes that you could talk about that are important to you, that are current events. But don't get off into an extreme topic that might have folks pitting side against side, but current events make good speeches. Heroes make good speeches. You might think of some folks that you really look up to, maybe somebody in your family. Some of you have sports figures that you really look up to. You could talk about them in your speech. Some of us have some really good family stories, and you might have some family stories that you could share with us about. You've got somebody famous in your family that nobody really knows about. Do some research. Talk to mom and dad. Talk to grandparents, aunts and uncles. Find a family story. Hobbies make good topics for speeches. We had a young man a few years ago in 4-H who was a race car driver, and he gave his speech on driving race cars. That was pretty exciting. An 8th grader driving a race car? Pretty cool. Famous people, lots of famous folks running around, folks from the past, maybe folks that are more current, make good topics. Just whatever interests you. Now, if I would ask you to tell me about things that you're interested in, most of you can talk. You get out there and you gab with your friends, you carry on with your buddies about things that you're interested in. Take that energy and put that in the form of a speech. So, figure out how you're going to approach it, and then figure out maybe a topic to use. Something that's of interest to you, you're the expert, you're telling us, that makes it much more exciting. So get you a topic, figure that out. After you get the topic, let's look at some other ideas that we want to think about. When we're writing our speech, it's a good idea that we include an introduction. We include at least 3 points of a body of our speech, and then we have a conclusion of our speech. So the introduction is there to get everyone's attention that we're speaking to. Get them excited about what you're talking about. How could you do that? You might ask a question. You might share a story. You might give a simple illustration to get our attention about what we're going to talk about. And then the body of our speech, that's where we want to get into the detail. Have 3 or 4 points that just give the detail of whatever it is we're talking about. And then the conclusion of our speech, we want to wrap it all up. We want to pull things together. We might even go back to our introduction and remind about the question we asked or the story we told, just to pull it all back together. So, an introduction, a body, conclusion. Could we write a speech about this sandwich? Just think on that a minute. Think about a speech on that sandwich. Now, when we do that, we might get hungry. But let's think, what we do? Maybe ask a question. You know, when I really get hungry and my stomach's really starting growling, I really want something to eat. I think about all those things that are in the refrigerator that I can make me a nice sandwich with. So what did I do for my introduction? I ask you a question. I ask, are you hungry? Some of you may have said, you know, I am hungry. So I got you thinking about it. And then I introduced you to that sandwich. Let's talk about my favorite sandwich. Now, if I'm going to make a good sandwich, and this would be the body, I'm going to talk about 3 or 4 different things here. Let's talk about the bread. My good sandwich, I've got to have good whole wheat bread. It's good for you, plus I like the taste. Then on my sandwich, I'm going to have some smoked turkey. I'm going to have some smoked ham. And then we've got to have some good cheddar cheese. Okay? Then my sandwich is not complete unless I have some big old slabs of tomato on it, big old slab of mayo, and then some lettuce is going to make it complete. So that's going to be the body of my speech. And I may add to that with some more details. What have I talked about? Talked about the bread, the top and the bottom of that sandwich. I've talked about different types of meat. I've talked about cheese, and then I've talked about the things to put on that sandwich to just add to it to make it special. That would be the body of my speech. Then after I talk about those things, I need to have a conclusion. What about something like this for that speech? You know, the next time you're really hungry and your stomach is just growling and you really got to have something to eat, why not go to the refrigerator, find those ingredients to make your favorite sandwich, and solve that hunger problem that you got growling in your belly. So you see that simple example. We got an introduction, I ask a question when you're hungry. Conclusion, I tied my conclusion back into that question that I asked at the beginning about your stomach growling, solving that issue. And then we had 3 or 4 points there. We talked about the bread. We talked about the meat that went on the sandwich. We talked about the different cheeses that would go on the sandwich. Then we topped it off with some lettuce and tomato and mayo. So that's a simple example. Make sure a good speech has an introduction, 3 or 4 points, which are the body, and then they are the conclusion. Especially if you come to the county speaking contest. You want to make sure you have that, because the scorecard for the contest itself it has points on there if you have an introduction, a body, and a conclusion. Now some of you are saying, contest? I didn't sign up for a contest. We're not making anybody come to a contest, but some of you may get into it and say, hey, I can do well with this. You might want to compete for some prizes and some awards. But right now, just a simple 2 to 3 minutes talking about something that's important to you. Make sure we have those 3 critical things in our speech. What about some other things to just help make our speech extra good, to help make our speech effective? If we're speaking, we're communicating ideas that we have, that we think are important to others. So these are some things that will help you in that communication to making it much better. We want to speak up when we give a speech. We want to talk loud enough where people can hear us. If you're in a room the size of your classroom, you need to speak up where everybody can hear you from one side of the classroom to the other. Sometimes when we're giving speeches, we get a little bit nervous and we get to talking very low when nobody can hear us. So we want to speak up loud enough where everyone can hear us. If we're talking so low where no one can hear us, we're not communicating very well. So practice your speech by speaking loud enough where everyone can hear you. It's also important when we're giving a speech that we have a good posture. Now, typically when we're speaking, we want to stand up. We want to stand up straight. It's a good idea that our feet be evenly distributed underneath us. We don't want to slouch over. We don't want to bend over. We want to stand up straight and strong so everybody can see us. It's important in our posture that we watch what we're doing, that we don't move around too much, that it's awkward, that we don't lean on things, lean on the podium, lean on the table, that we are seen so that we can communicate, and things that we're doing with our posture do not take away from our effectiveness to communicate with our audience. Also, we want to make sure we fit in that time limit. 2 to 3 minutes. All of you can talk for 2 minutes about something that's important to you. You know, if you got a 20-second speech, it's probably not going to include an introduction and a body and a conclusion. So look toward making sure you're into that 2 to 3 minute time frame. Don't just go on and on and on, rattling your speech. Most of us won't do that. We need to practice. It's always important to practice. We can be more effective in presenting our speech if we practice. You can practice at home. You can practice at school. You can practice with brothers and sisters, moms and dads. You can even practice with your pets. Your dog, your cat, they're going to listen to your speech. The more you present it, the better it will be received from those who are listening to your speech. So practice. Practice, practice. Did I say practice? That's probably the most important thing that you can do. It's also important that we make eye contact when we're presenting our speech. Look around the room at different people in the room. Look at different places. Make eye contact with those who are speaking. If you are looking at folks in the eye, they will communicate with you and receive your message much better. You may say, it's hard enough for me to present my speech. How can I look people in the eye? A little technique you can use, you can look right over the top of their head. It looks like you're looking right at them, but makes the point where you're looking at different places in the room, and don't just look at the same person over and over. Move around the room so folks can see that you're trying to communicate that way. And then learn from some note cards. Take your speech and put it on some note cards. You know, this is some paper cut in the size of a typical note card that we might use. I would encourage you not to use a sheet of notebook paper. Sometimes when we're doing it, we get up here and we try to hide behind that, and we need to be able to look at our audience. We're not just going to read. Reading a report is one thing, but we want to put our speech on some note cards. We want to learn it enough where we can present it. If you need to look at your cards, that's great. And it's a little bit harder to hide behind this than it is behind a sheet of paper. So get you some note cards. Practice working on that speech. So these are some things that would help you in just presenting a speech. Let me share with you some things that are here on our newsletter. Encourage you to take a look at that. You know, again, don't panic. This is for, you know, us just to, everybody's a little bit nervous, but we learn to get over that fear that we have. Decide on your subject. Get your thoughts together. Organize those thoughts. Make sure we have that introduction, that body, and that conclusion. Write out your speech on some notebook paper. Then put it on the note cards that we talked about, and then you can begin to practice that, time it, figure out how much you've got. We've talked about eye contact, talked about our posture, speaking loud enough where folks can hear us. We are not using any posters or illustrations when we're giving a speech. A speech is us presenting to the audience what we have, okay? Illustrations and posters there are for demonstrations, for demonstration purposes, okay? So let me share with you an example of this speech that I'm going to give. And this is a speech that talks about superheroes. It talks about 4-H superheroes. You can see I've just got it here on some note cards. I'm going to take some of this stuff down so we can stand up and just share with you from a perspective. And I have not worked on this speech a great deal, but I want you to notice the format. I want you to notice the introduction, the body, and the conclusion. Now, if you come to the speech contest, you want to dress nicely. I would suggest something besides blue jeans. That's what I've got on today. A collared shirt's fine. Sevier County 4-H, that's what I've got on here. But let's just give you this example. The topic of my speech, be a 4-H superhero. Have you ever heard the phrase, Spider-Man, Spider-Man does whatever a spider can do? I bet you have. Have you ever thought what it would be like to fly through the air, jumping and swinging from building to building? I know I have, but superheroes don't fly and jump. They use those superhuman skills to help people. 4-H has its own kind of superheroes. They don't leap tall buildings in a single bound like Superman, but they do work hard to make a difference. The great thing is that anyone can become a 4-H superhero. Through 4-H, young people become superheroes every day. They learn how to make a difference. They put those skills to work, and they teach those skills to others all along the way. Now that's my introduction, just talking about superheroes. Now I'm going to have 3 points in my speech. This is the first one. First of all, young people are taught and trained how to become superheroes. 4-H teaches young people the value of service and why it's important to help those who are in need. Every time we do a service project in our club, we take time to plan and talk about how this project will make a difference. After the project is over, we reflect or take time to think about why it is important to help or ways we could even help more the next time. We also learn from older 4-Hers, we learn from leaders, and of course our 4-H agents who use their knowledge and experiences to help us better understand the value of service to others. So as you see, the first step to become a 4-H superhero is to know how we can make a difference in our community or in our world. So that's part 1 of the body. Point 2. Secondly, young people get the chance to practice those superhero skills through 4-H. It may be making and delivering food baskets to local families. It may be making a birdhouse to put up at the state park. or one of my personal favorites, sewing blankets for new babies at the remodeled McDonald house. It doesn't really matter what the project, just so we are making a difference. I have found the more projects I do, the better. For instance, that first time we took food baskets to a local family, I was kind of nervous. But after I saw how much they appreciated it, I really felt good about it. Just made me more anxious to help the next time. So the second step in becoming a 4-H superhero is to practice your skills by participating in as many service projects as others. Finally, point number 3, young people learn how to be super 4-H heroes by taking time to pass those superhuman skills to others. Unlike the movies, it takes more than one superhero to make a difference. So as a 4-H member gets more experienced, it is only natural that he or she teach others the same lessons that they have learned. This may be conducting a workshop on how to do a certain type of service project, but it also might be just to recruit someone to help you. After all, the 4-H slogan is, learn by doing. The great thing about this is it's always more fun when there are more friends around with you to do the project. And the more 4-Hers involved, the quicker the work gets done and the more people we can actually help. So remember, great 4-H superheroes are always teaching others and helping others to become superheroes as well. It's always important to remember that unlike the movies, 4-H superheroes are not born, they are made. As I said earlier, 4-H helps young people to become superheroes by teaching them learn how to make a difference, giving them a chance to put skills to work, and showing them the value of teaching others how to serve. So if you could excuse me, I must be off. It's a bird, it's a plane. No, it's 4-H superhero, striving to make a difference. So you see this example in this speech. It had an introduction, it had 3 points, and then it had a conclusion. Okay? Now I know all of you can do a great job on a speech, and I would just encourage you to do that. Again, speaking is a skill that we're going to use whatever we do in life. Give it a shot. You'll feel better when you get through. We'll have some recognition for you for doing that. And we look forward to hearing some great speeches from you in the days ahead.